Hello, Renee Flamond here. You guys, this topic of, I get asked this all the time, not just in this channel, but in life. You're advising someone going through a heartbreak and they have some back and forth with that person. And they always ask, how do you know it's final? Especially with narcissism though, obviously. But how do you know when it's final? I get asked a lot. And how you're finally breaking away. And any of you going through this relationship, you have had that question at one point or another. And I can tell you that I did know finally that it was final because there was a shift. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to get to that shift. We're going to talk about how to recognize that shift, okay? There are things you can do to move you in that direction. If you have so much as decided this person is not for me and I do want to leave, because I don't tell anyone to leave, very personal choice. But if you are there or you're trying to say, I am trying to break away and I keep getting sucked back in and now I've done it again and how do I know this is the final time? You're literally sitting there not knowing if it's your final time back in with that person. The narcissist is very cunning with their Hoover attempts. And we've all been susceptible and gone back in. Except, like I said, one or two of you did a 180 after the first infraction, and I admire that. But most of us go back in. How do you know? One of the big clues to me, and I always try to give you like something that helps you recognize the feeling when it's coming to you. I knew I was exiting internally when, as new incidents arose, and I well knew the dysfunction and lies that were wrapped around the new incident, because at some point, even if you're staying, you know what's what. Even with all of that, I found myself not even caring to discuss it anymore when new things came up, or have the argument, or try to make any points at all. It got to the point that I think what we have to do is sometimes, some of us, it's like I had to wean myself off of being around him. And that's probably connected to all that addiction talk that we do, right? The endorphins, all of that. And I was used to him being around me, his laughter, his face, his company. I don't know. But I started to wean myself off. And ways that I did that is with every new infraction that came up, I knew he wasn't going to be around forever. I knew I was weaning myself off. That's how I felt. Well, I don't care enough to have this argument. I know he's not a keeper for the rest of my life. Just keep the peace tonight. I don't know, really. But I knew it was done. And I felt a shift. I might not have been able to shut the door on it at that moment. I might not have been ready for no contact at that moment. I might have taken the visit for coffee once a month, gone to dinner maybe towards the end there, longer than I should have, longer time than I should have. But I didn't care to discuss anything. I started to make fun of him, really. That's kind of what I did. We talked about fighting on Friday. I would fight dirty. And I would say things like, don't you feel the patheticism that exists in everything that you do? Like I would say that, and then I started to tell him, I just have you around for a scientific experiment. I was studying narcissism by that point, so I would let him know, you're just a scientific experiment. I just want to pick your brain for as long as I can stand your company, type thing. But I knew it was over. So if you are right now separated again, and you're wondering the same thing, how do I know when it's over? How do you feel when you look at them? How do you feel when they leave your company? If you are still grabbing at them, not wanting them to walk out the door, you're still not ready to not be with them, that might be a sign that it might not be the final goodbye. But if you're like, okay, yep, good night, it was good to and you shut the door and you're like, ugh, and you sit down and you turn on your favorite program and don't think about them again and don't cry anymore and don't wonder about them and really don't care if they text you back, that's getting into good territory. And if you have been betrayed enough by this kind of person, you do get to that point. in the relationship that you've had it. Now, how do you get there? If you're like, well, Renee, I'm not there. I'd love to get there. Well, it takes a very huge honest awareness and acceptance of what they've done to you. It takes you looking at your own truth. You know, I told you I use a whiteboard. I write everything out. Once I wrote everything out, and I mean, you know, choose 5 or 6 words. You know what you're talking about. The infractions took up the whole, I was like, ugh, gross. Like, he's disgusting. Like, if that were a list of qualities of someone in the upcoming movie or the upcoming novel I was about to read, I would be like, I hate that person already before I start, yet I couldn't break away from them. So you look at the truth of it. Look at it. Swallow it. That's your truth. Now, if you can list all the infractions, I'll go you one step further. If you can do that, look at them and still come back and say, you know what, Renee? I just did it. And guess what? I'm still not ready. I still can see myself going back with him. Now we have a different question. And that is about your self-worth and what hole are you trying to fill? Because there's no way, if you can logically and with your brain look at it and read all of the things they've done to you, and then say, but I still want to be with that person. So why do you think that you deserve that treatment? That would be the bigger question at this point. Because you can't tell me you don't understand the way he makes you feel. Yes, I do. You just wrote it all down. I know it's bad. But when it's good, it's good. Love bombing, false guy, 5% guy, not real. So I want you to pay attention to the truth of your situation. Not what you're imagining it to be. Not what you're hoping for it to be. Not what you're wishing and praying and crying and pleading and begging and for it to be. What is the truth of your situation? It's the whiteboard that you write down when no one's looking. Write down everything. Use your phone. Use a piece of paper. I don't care what you use. I have a whiteboard. It's very big, very bold. It makes a very big statement for me to see it on a whiteboard. And the list of infractions is as thick as a phone book. I started to see it. I'm a visual learner. And I guess it's just something I've always done. But for me to look at how many lines there were, like say this screen is the whiteboard, it was, all right, am I in the middle? 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down and coming on down. Two halves. That's a lot to look at and say, I'm going to go back in. Now, if you're not ready to not have them in your life, you might hesitate to make that list because you know the truth will stare you in the face and make you not be with them. Look, if you're not ready to leave, you're not ready to leave. And you doing the mini breakups in between, that's just harming everybody. I know a girl constantly packing up and leaving, using the word divorce all the time, constantly, every fight. Kind of loses its value. You know what I mean? So if you're not ready to leave, the back and forths aren't going to make them change. So get back in it. You know what? Get back in it if you feel that you do it now. What's time away is doing nothing except letting him or her be out there in the world without you. What do you think they're doing? Well, they're doing it with us or without us anyway. But what I'm trying to tell you is, if your truth is such that even with that list, you want to get back in, when I say, well, then go back in then, I'm not wanting you to do that. What I'm wanting you to do is stop and say, okay, if I did do, okay, yep, I'm going to call him today, I'm going to get back together. What would it look like? What do you think the relationship will look like? What are you getting out of that? Right? If you say to yourself, oh, all right, I'll get back together, and inside you have dread, but you're doing it on the outside because you're trying to wean yourself off, you're not ready to be away from that person yet, but inside you have dread, that's a sign that it is probably the final breaking away and that you could have stuck it out. You got to get through that withdrawal period, and that's my next video, because the withdrawal from a narcissist can be brutal. I think that's going to be the title of the next video. So we'll talk about that. You got to get through that part. To get up to that part, if you're one that's deciding to leave, I also felt myself, as bad things continued to happen, that they were just like more evidence dropping into the ad column of bad things. I would add it to the whiteboard and just kind of sit there and like, yep. I became clinical. I started to think about it in a clinical fashion. I'm like, wow, yeah, look at that dysfunction. Lord, I can't believe I put up with that. And then I had to go through all that forgiving of myself for having put up with that. You feel it inside, the shift of it, and it is glorious. And there's no more when something bad happens. You know, you do a lot of this in a relationship with your narcissist. Oh my God. You do a lot of that because you're in absolute disbelief that 2 minutes after you just finished a conversation about loyalty, his phone goes off and he's been seeing someone else. It's infuriating. But you find instead of the oh my God, it's more, of course that happened. Of course that happened. And that's when my mouth would come in. Well, that speaks to the character, the man that you are. How you carry yourself through life is your choice, narcissist. I can't help you be above what you are. I dated scum for a while. Now I'm not. What do you mean? We had good time. No. Nope. The hole in me allowed your dysfunction to be accepted. Oh yeah, I said mean things. That's not even mean. But I mean, because I thought the last thing I'm going to let this narcissist do is leave feeling that he's anything more than ordinary, which they detest being ordinary, that he was not remarkable, that he was average. I get mean. And I knew what to say. And the fact that I could say those things gave me a sign that it was the final breaking away. Because I believe those things. I do. I believe that that character of that being is just the lowest pond scum. To do what a narcissist does to a person, to me, is like amoeba level. Like amoebas and parameciums are above them. Like it's absolute the bottom scum of the pond. So once I saw that and had it written out, and I knew that and felt that, that became my truth. And I don't deserve to be with pond scum. And it became clear. And I became empowered. And I started to realize that the oh my God moment now would be if I accepted it. I was no longer going to tell him with my behavior of accepting infraction after infraction after infraction. I was no longer going to, with that behavior, tell him that I accept this for myself. I don't know what I've been doing for the last 2 years, but I'm awake now. I don't accept this for myself. Well, you did all that. I don't care. I was in a fog. I was inhabited by another being, but I'm awake now. And it feels different. You feel, you know you're going to be okay. And I want to tell all of you, if you're in a space that you're teetering on leaving, you are going to be okay. Let me tell you something, people just joining this channel, it was only last year, the beginning of last year, I was still in the thick of this. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not broken. I'm fine. I feel good. I'm flourishing. I'm peaceful. It's quiet here. The final breaking away is because you're ready for some peace and quiet also. And don't you deserve that? I didn't want a noisy, screaming household anymore. With peripheral narcissists, I was finally breaking away when I realized I don't want to play this game anymore. We're old. I don't think it's old. I say that facetiously, but I mean, 55 is not 15. Like, come on. I don't want to play these games anymore. That's how you feel when you know it's the final breaking away and how you know it's final. You realize, I don't want to play anymore. I think I wrote that to him once in a text. I just don't want to play anymore. For some people, it becomes a battle of wills, right? What if you have two narcissists, right? It becomes a battle of wills. Who's going to win? Who can out-mean the other one? I don't want any of that energy in my life. Now, if you sign up to go back in, you got to know that that's coming. So I want you to look at your truth. I want you to look at it and ask yourself, are you not even caring at the point that you're like, oh, why bother? He's just going to do it again. You don't even talk about it anymore. I mean, of course you care. It kind of, but really, do you? You're like, oh, please, that just says a lot about him. Because, of course, their behavior says nothing about you. It says everything that negative is about them. Their behavior is no reflection on what you did, didn't do, should have done. Please. We've made videos on that too. Please look them up. So I want to mention this because a lot of people ask me, how do you know when it's done? And I don't want to say, you know when you know. No, people are looking for answers. And these are the things that came upon my mind and heart when I was going through it, and it made me know it was done. I got disgusted. I was disgusted by his presence. I was very relieved when he was gone. I didn't want him to call. I really didn't. Stopped looking at my phone. Stopped checking how long it had been that I hadn't had any contact. Stopped counting no contact. It's been over a year now. I have no idea. It's been a long time. But you feel it. It's a shift. So look out for these things. And if you're starting to feel them, then you're becoming stronger than you think. And maybe you can handle the absence at this point. But I understand the weaning off. That's what I called it. It was like a weaning off. You know, you even like try to convince yourself, maybe you could be friends. Impossible. For me. That was impossible. Because they never stopped trying to love bomb you, hoover you. They don't suddenly go into a normal lane. You're like, oh, well, he's so much fun. I'd love to still have him in my life. But they're never going to stop. Ever. It could be 10 years from now, and you could be in the kitchen with a new husband, and they're out there with their new wife. He's going to come in the kitchen. No one's in the kitchen with you. He's going to love bomb you and hoover you in the kitchen. You can't be friends with these people. They're leeches. And they want forever to make you swoon over them. Well, the way that you do that is you love bomb someone. They get a high off the swooning part. That's why they come back and back and back. They love that. You'll know when it's the final breaking away because you're not even bothered by the infraction anymore. That's a bad sign for the narcissist for you, and a good sign for you. Keep your eyes out for all these things and more, you guys. I don't want you feeling stuck in a place that you don't want to be, and I don't want you fooling yourself into thinking your truth is something that it isn't. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your viewership. Go ahead and hit sub, like, and share if you don't mind, and I will talk to you next time.